Being so close to the new year, naturally we begin to think about our New Year's resolution. Each year, one of the areas in our lives that we tend to focus on is the family. And so how wonderful that today we celebrate the Holy Family in preparation for this new year. So in doing so, we may consider the state of our own families, right? We may ask, is my family strong? Is my family happy? Is my family peaceful? Is my family crazy? There's a little crazy in every family. And if so, well, you're lucky because today's readings, they provide some insight and advice for families. But there's one other attribute that we hardly give any time to, that we don't really consider when we consider our family. How often do you consider the holiness of your family? How often are our New Year's resolutions focused on the holiness of our family? Perhaps we don't consider our individual holiness or the holiness of our families as part of our resolution because the meaning of holiness may be misconstrued or misunderstood. Maybe for us, holiness just isn't appealing. Maybe it's because we associate holiness with a select, privileged group of people. Maybe we see holiness as something that's out of reach. It's just too far to grasp. Maybe we see holiness as an infantile dream in a world of grown-ups with more important things to tend to, like financial stability, security. Maybe we've told ourselves that I can't be like Mother Teresa or John Paul II or the Holy Family, so why give it a shot? Maybe again, holiness just isn't something that's appealing to us. It's not even worth considering, or far from consideration. But our faith, friends, it teaches us that holiness needs to be the everyday business of every Christian. To be Christian is to strive for holiness. Why? Because holiness is what gets us to heaven. Holiness is what each and every one of us are called to be. And it's not a members-only club for elite, but the purpose for which you and I were created. God created us for holiness. And in his incredible imagination, he created the family to be the place in which holiness is developed. Friends, with today's feast of the Holy Family, we're reminded that is within the context of the family that we should be instructed and instruct others in holiness. We're also reminded that is through our family and in our home, what the church calls the domestic church, where we're taught about the most important things of life. I mean, it makes the most sense, after all. It's in your home where you learn about failure and success, where you first learn about good and bad, right and wrong, about justice and mercy, fair and what's unfair. It's in the family where we're taught by our parents or grandparents, siblings and loved ones, how we ought to be as Christian men and women in a society. So it makes sense that we focus on the family as the place where holiness should reign. The Holy Family that we celebrate today, that we hold up as an example, is a perfect model of a family life, lived in faith and obedience to God. Because that's what it means to be holy. But I know for us it can be difficult to imagine or to draw any comparison between our situation and our families with the Holy Family. We tend to see the Holy Family like it's outside in the nativity scene. There are these plaster wooden or stone statues, kind of devoid of any relativism or any sort of real connection to our own family. Relevance, I should say. We fail to remember that the Holy Family is flesh and blood just like you and I. And they were subject to the same human conditions that we struggle with in our own lives. They are indeed holy, but they're also human. Remember, Mary was found with child before her marriage ritual was complete. She was found pregnant before she was married. Joseph struggled with the embarrassment and suspicion of infidelity. They were discriminated against and made to feel unwanted, forced to flee from their home, to go to Egypt and then back again. They struggled with the thought that their only son would have to suffer greatly by those he came to save. And in the midst of all that was going wrong in the life of the Holy Family, they remained a Holy Family. Why and how? Because they deferred to God's will in all things and in all situations. In other words, honoring God is what enabled them to honor, serve, and love one another. Let me say that again. Honoring God is what enabled the Holy Family to be a holy family, to serve, love, and honor others. You see, friends, they built a home solid on the foundation of faith where God was the center. Their attention was on God and His plan for them, not on the world and its priorities. This was difficult for the Holy Family then, but boy, is it tough for us today. Never mind the cacophony of endless distractions keeping us from hearing God speak to us as individuals. But the culture with its avatars have essentially waged war on the family unity. Our society has made it difficult for God's presence to be made welcome in our home and in the family life. And we've given into it. It didn't force its way in. We opened the doors. In many ways, we've allowed it to happen. And I'll give you one simple example. What did God say that Sundays were supposed to be for the human family? A day of rest. A day of rest. Sunday is supposed to be a time for rest and leisure, for worship of God and growth as a community. Sunday is supposed to be a day in which we make time to worship God and strengthen the bonds of family. But instead, so many families have given up on safeguarding Sundays for other priorities, often selfish and materialistic and unrealistic purposes. Families have foolishly replaced the worship of God with their fellow neighbors and Sunday gravy with their family for Sunday soccer tournaments and travel baseball. God knows that we are so dedicated to work and to production, and He gave us 6 days to do just that. But He invites us on one day to rest, for our sake and our benefit and the benefit of society. And what does that mean? It means we come together to give worship to God, and we never leave empty-handed. And He's given us a day to unite as a family with friends, to rest, to grow. And what have we done? We made other priorities. Due to the ways in which the family structure, or the structure of the family has been attacked and changed and modified over many decades, things have grown more and more complicated as the culture becomes more and more self-centered, relativistic, and secular. Friends, the culture's tempting influence is such that we can easily become tricked into thinking that not honoring God's commandments, to worship Him and to honor our family, can somehow benefit us in our family. How do we think that that benefits us in the least? The world shouts to us and it says, "Take care of yourselves and others will do the same." But God wants to take care of us so we can take care of others. But time and time again, we're shown that when we rely on ourselves for our own happiness, when we forget where all things that are valuable come from and how they ought to be shared, when we remove the worship of God from the equation, when we neglect to make meaningful time for our family, that somehow we in our society will be better off, that somehow we'll be happier. Well, how do you think that's going? For I surely don't see signs of that. Friends, we're reminded today as we highlight the Holy Family that love and happiness are gifts that ultimately come from God and through the presence of others in our lives, especially those in our homes. So how do we more clearly strive to follow the example of the Holy Family? Why not, with this New Year resolution, choose something truly transformative, productive, and positive. Choose holiness for yourself, for your family, for the sake of our world. Live more and more a life that is radically lived for others, while placing God at the center of your home and in the center of your heart. Let's make that resolution this year.